غدت كالريح 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 قوية، شبت كالنار 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 وضية، هبت كالريح كالريح كالريح.
الله 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 الله.
I was born a Christian. I just never really took to Christianity in my youth, you know. I went to church, but I went for like the boys' brigade, which was like a boys' youth club, you know. And I used to go on Sunday morning with my grandfather because he was a devout Christian, he was a Methodist, you know, and he used to take me to the local Methodist chapel. And I can remember just sitting there in the back and watching all these women in the front. And the tradition at the time, back in like the early 60s, was they used to wear these big hats to church, right, with like flowers and fruit and all sorts of them, right? And it was like, who had the best hats, you know? And every Sunday morning was a who had the best hat competition, you know? And you could see them all sort of like eyeing up each other's hats. And I'm thinking, like, is this what you're here for? Do you know what I mean? And the sermons used to be like boring, you know? Maybe it was just me, you know, I was a kid. So anyway, I was a thinker, you know what I mean? My grandfather always, and my father always told me to think things through, right? Never just accept things because you told them. So I grew up as a bit of a free thinker. My family were extremely left-wing politically, right? On both sides. On my mother's side, right, my maternal grandfather went through the Great Depression. And he remembers times when he didn't even have shoes to wear, you know what I mean? It was a bad time back in the 1920s. The irony was that a lot of people didn't realise actually that it was the Labour government were actually responsible for the Depression, right? And then the next government that came in, I try and put it right. But, you know, in England, where political memories are very short, people, you know, it's like, the government gets in and 2 days later, it's like, what have you not done with the country? Do you know what I mean? It didn't matter whether Labour or Conservative, it didn't matter, right? After being, you know, 48 hours in Downing Street, and you get a blame for everything. It's a British way, it's an English way, you know. Yeah. So I was brought up in this sort of atmosphere, and I remember when I was like a kid selling copies of the Militant, right, outside the Tyne Tunnel entrance, right, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And, it got to the point where one day, right, when I was sort of 16 and I was in the Young Socialists and everything, man, I was like, oh, I was full of it. What about the workers? You know, and all this stuff, you know. Anyway, one day I was going to Newcastle to college, and I just left school. I was studying dental technology at Newcastle University Dental Hospital, and I was on the train, okay. It was before I like the posh metros, these were the old trains.
Back in the days.
And I remember sitting, and this guy was sitting opposite me, right, and he was reading a book. And the book was by a man called Eric von Daniken, right? It was called Chariots of the Gods. I thought, that's a weird title for a book. Chariots of the Gods, what does that mean, right? And I was so intrigued, right? I was like sitting trying to like look at the blurb on the back of his book, you know, so it was like this, right? You know, and I could see little bits of it, right? And, it was something like, I saw, was God an astronaut? And I thought, what? What sort of question is that, right? But I was intrigued.
Yeah.
So I bumped off college, okay? And I went to this bookshop and I bought a copy of this book. And I went to this fish and chip restaurant in Newcastle called Bowyer's, right? They did the best fish and chips in the universe. And I remember sitting with this book and I was enchanted because it was like, when I went to my socialist meetings, you know, like the Young Socialists, they were talking about how are we going to convince the, you know, like the people in Dudley on the Wall to vote Labour at the next council election. Well, here's this guy, this Eric von Daniken, and he's talking about like cosmic stuff, do you know what I mean? Like, was God, you know, an astronaut? Did aliens come down and create life on Earth and all of this stuff? And he's got pictures purporting to be of rock carvings of ancient astronauts and everything. I mean, the guy became a multi-millionaire. He sold loads of books. And I mean, he changed the way people think, you know. And I mean, now I look at the book, you know, there's nothing in it, you know what I mean? But what he did do, that guy, was he was the first person who really stood up against the establishment and said, look, I disagree with Orthodox history, I disagree with Orthodox religion. And you know what? I don't really care, right? You can stamp your feet and you can shout and scream. I ain't changing my mind, and I'm not changing what I write about in books. And everybody else sort of thought, hey, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And he changed the way people think, and people got like liberated up here, you know what I mean? It started like, hey, look, if you disagree with the, you know, the evolutionists, the sky doesn't fall in, right? You can actually get away with it. You can say something outrageous and nothing happens. There's no thunderbolt hits it, right? You know what I mean? So I grew up like this with this very free thinking stuff in my head, you know, and I got really into this. And then there was a friend that I, well, two friends that I had a really weird experience one day when I was about 16. We're standing talking, just chilling out on the street corner. It was July the 14th, right, which is really weird because, you know, they made that movie Independence Day, right?
Okay.
July the 4th, sorry, you know, and it was like Independence Day, and we looked up and we saw this like huge circular thing like floating across the sky, right? And I said, what's that? And we were like terrified, right? I mean, this thing was big. I mean, it was no lights or nothing. It was just this huge flying saucer, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And there it was, just floating across, right? And we all like raced around home, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I remember, the RAF were ringing me and the police were coming and everything. They were like really upset about this, you know what I mean? Like, what did you see? What did it look like? Where was it going?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, these are like taking this really seriously, do you know what I mean? It's like, they're not laughing or anything. So I started to write research, you know. I got into like I found that there was people who were, I wasn't the only one who had seen these sort of things, you know, as we made. It's like millions of people worldwide had had these experiences where they'd seen these very strange things floating through the sky. So I started to like buy books on it when I was only like 16, right? And I started subscribing to newsletters, and you know. So then I grew up, right? Got a job, and eventually went back to Christianity. Okay, because I needed some meaning in my life. Studied the Bible avidly, right? Took some courses in Bible theology and stuff like that. I started writing for Bible magazines, right? All the time, this interest in this bizarre stuff still in the back of my head, okay? Never really went away. But I had pastors and elders that were saying to me, look, you know, that stuff's like, it's the devil, okay? All the flying saucer stuff, right, man, that's Satan, okay? You've got to keep away from that stuff, right? So I did for a while. And I really just got into the Bible, you know, and I started writing for theological magazines, and like really getting into the biblical studies. And I used to really pride myself on when anyone came along and said, you know, that bit of the Bible, right, it's wrong. I just used to like, up here, good. Actually, no, it's not wrong, right? And I would come out with like some stock explanation that would make it right, you know, and I was really good at this, right? And I remember arguing like atheists and everything, and when what they said, right, I had an answer, do you know what I mean? And I just had this like sponge of a brain that took all this stuff in. Then I did anyway. Right? Once you get about 45, that starts to move off. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I was religious. Okay, I'm a Christian, but I've got some unorthodox ideas. I could never believe in the Trinity, never. Right? That just from day one, I could not accept that there was three persons in one God. Right? It was just craziness to me. Right? And eventually I realised that I couldn't be a Christian and not believe the Trinity, because like you can get away with a lot of stuff in Christianity, right? You can be anything you want to be, and you can disbelieve anything. You don't have to believe in the afterlife, right? There are even people who call themselves Christians and don't actually believe in God, right? Which is weird. But you can actually be a Christian, but you don't have to believe in hellfire. You don't have to believe in heaven, right? You don't have to believe in any of the instructions in the Bible given regarding sexual relationships, marriage, or whatever. You can live together, you can cohabit, you can just do whatever you want, right? But the one thing you can't do is deny the Trinity doctrine, right? That's like the one thing that's the step too far. You cannot deny that. If you're, there are Christian organisations that do. Like you've got the Jehovah's Witnesses who don't believe in the Trinity, right? Good for them, right? And the other Unitarian churches, you know what I mean, who don't believe in the Trinity, good for them. But they're very few and far between. 99% of all non-Christians, right, they're Trinitarian. So I had to separate myself. So it was a case of where did I go? For a while I sort of floated around with different Unitarian Christian groups. Just didn't settle. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to my roots. So I started research. We found my tree on my dad's side. I found out that great grandparents had emigrated to America, right? They got locked up in this snow cabin, snowed in this cabin, New York, and there was a hunting party of Indians had dug them out, basically, took them off to the reservation, thawed them out, fed them, because they were virtually dead. And that was a story I was told. I don't know whether it's true. But I know there was the connection because my great-grandfather went over there. And he ended up fighting the Civil War with this unit that was entirely made up of Native Americans. Okay, so I suspect there was some Native American blood in there somewhere in this little vignette. Someone in my family married a Native American girl, right? Or a Native American guy or whatever. I'm not sure the dynamics, but it's in there somehow. My great-grandfather was born in America, came over here when he was 18 months old, and I didn't know anything about this heritage, right, until I prized it out of my family. Prized it out of my father. He didn't want to talk about it, nobody else wanted to talk about it, and then I heard about it, and what came out, reservation in Louisiana, Native American reservation, which was an interesting experience. Native American people are beautiful people, they're very peaceful people, right? They're not polygamists. They're not. The spiritual concepts, right? We talk about polytheists. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Right? They're not polytheists. Okay, people think they are. And they're pagans, but they're not polytheists. They don't believe in the multiplicity of God. They believe in one God. And they believe in spirits a little bit like we believe in the Jinn, right? But they call them the grandfather spirits, okay? Same thing. But I love their way of life, right? They're very spiritual, very peaceful people. So for a while I sort of embraced this, and I just loved the Native American, what they call the medicine way. That's the name for the spiritual path. The word medicine, they don't mean it the way we do it. They mean, when they talk about good medicine, they mean it's something good, it's good spiritually, So if somebody says something very wise, they'll say, oh, that's good medicine, but and I thought I'd really found it. I thought this is the way everyone should live because they love the environment and everything, okay? But the problem is that their world has been invaded by alcohol. Native Americans have a massive problem with alcohol. And what was a Native American chief once said, the white man came to our land, the Wassachusetts, as they call them, the white guys, right? He said, the white guys came to our land and they made us many promises, but they kept only one. We will take your land, right? And that's it, right? So the Native American world is now collapsed, There are many, many Native Americans who still practice their spirituality and everything, but it's like the world is in chaos, and it's heartbreaking because they're nice people. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, how could something so beautiful, how could it fall apart like this? Do you know what I mean? How could it be allowed? What's God doing here? So I still follow it, but I had these questions in my head. So all this time, I think, from birth, I've been searching for something and never finding anything that would fit. And then, how did we get into Islam? Okay. My youngest son, the middle son, was a bit of a fighter. Okay, he handled himself, and he's only about my height, right? But it was like he would just, he was never a bad kid. He was a good kid, really was. And never got into trouble with the police or anything like that. At least not that I know about. I'm aware of. He was a very moral kid, but he got a real reputation, for being able to handle himself. And he got to the point where me and his mum used to worry because he used to work behind the bar and clubs and stuff. But why don't you go down and stay with your uncle down south? Okay, so he went down south. And he married this really nice girl, Filipino girl. She's a Roman Catholic, really good mother, good housewife, everything, He grew up, he matured, eventually got himself into the army, and got his house and got his life together. By this time, his younger brother, okay, the youngest one, he's grown up, and he's going down the same path now, okay. But he's like drinking and gambling, okay, seriously, right? No crime, wouldn't get involved with anything bad like that, right? But he had a real gambling problem and a real alcohol problem. So his older brother, the middle one, until we already gone out, so I said, look, send him down here, right? I'll sort him out, Dad. Okay, I'll get him off the drink and the gambling and everything, and it'll be great. I said, okay, thank you. So we packed him off down there, and it got worse. And he just drank more, and he gambled more, and it got to the point where we were waiting to hear him, he'd been found dead somewhere or something. I've told his story so many times. It was true, though. That's what we were waiting for. So I'd been speaking at a conference in Devon. Me and my wife were travelling home, sitting next to each other on this coach, and we phoned around. My son, he didn't keep in touch with us very much, the youngest one. In fact, he used to send us texts. He suffered from depression, basically. And he used to send us texts. And he would say, look, why don't you just forget me? Forget you ever had me. I put you in nothing but trouble. Just erase me from your memory, right? And if I happen, I'll go on and do my thing. And you can forget me and you'll be happier. And I used to send him a text back and say, look, only someone who's never had a child could say that to a parent, and think that it would ever happen, It's just, you're asking the impossible. How can we just forget you? You're our son, we love you. And some of these weeks would go by when I hear from, and then you get the odd call, maybe, or text. And so anyway, my phone rang on his coach, and I looked, and it was his mobile number. So naturally, right, I thought it was him ringing. I thought, oh, great, let's give him a call. So I picked up the phone, and I said, hello, Aaron. I said, Dad. And there was a pause, and in his voice said, I still remember, it said, are you father of Harun? I thought, Harun? It's Arabic for Aaron. I said, yeah, I think so. He said, okay, are you sitting down? I said, yes. Why? He said, I have something to tell you. It's a very big shock. And my stomach was turning. So I thought, this is the call. This is it. By this time, my wife's looking at me, okay, and she's pulling me on. What's wrong? She sensed there was something. And I said, just a minute, and I said, look, I don't think it's going to come as a shock. Just spit it out to whoever you are. Just tell me, who are you? And he said, your son's landlord. I have something to tell you. Big shock. And I said, I don't think it will be. Just tell me. And he said, okay, your son become Muslim. And I remember going, is that all? And my wife said, what is it? And I said, the journey's become Muslim. And she went, goodness for that, right? And people have said it was like, that's weird, isn't it? Did you not like get a bit panicky or something? Or start thinking like about jihad, and, and all this stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and and Taliban or whatever, and and I went, no. I said the only thing that went through my head was no more drinking, no more gambling, right? No more fighting in the street, and end up in the gutter, and and I remember sitting on the bus, and I would say to my wife after, I would say, I said, that's fantastic, amazing. He's become Muslim, right? So we got up, and for the first time in ages, we slept soundly that night because we knew we didn't have to worry about him. You know what I mean? And what had happened was he got home, right, and he wasn't like fully down drunk, you know what I mean? But he honoured his promise to his landlords, like not to take alcohol into the premises, okay? But he would drink it and then come home. And I think what happened was they'd sat down with him one night and said, well, why are you doing this? And he says, well, why not? I mean, what's to live for? There's nothing else after this life. You drink yourself into oblivion, and at least I'll die happy, you know what I mean? And that's it, finished. And they said, well, actually there is, they said, do you feel you've got like an emptiness or something inside? He went, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. He said, so I feel like a drink. Okay? That's how I get rid of it. And they said, well, there's another way of filling that over without like drinking yourself to death, Anyway, well, I don't know what it is, something like that. This is the gist of the conversation as far as I was told later how it went. Anyway, he went to the mosque. I think it was the Faiz Medina Mosque in Peterborough. And bingo, he just took Shahada. That was it. Never looked back since. Right, So that made me and his mum like, wake up and smell the coffee, do you know what I mean? Yeah, thinking, what, here's me, right? I'm a journalist, right? I know how to talk to people, so, and I couldn't convince him to behave himself, right? His older brother couldn't, nobody could, his mum couldn't even. And he worshipped his mother, I loved that, right? So how could, I'm thinking, how could he help you, listen, all of a sudden something comes along, Islam, and it just, bam, it just like puts him right, So I thought, it's amazing. So anyway, he used to come up and see us, right? Actually, and then instead of getting a phone call every 6 months, it was like, every 6 minutes, you know what I mean? He's on the phone. Is my mum okay? Are you okay? How are you keeping that? And I'm like, wow. Where's this coming from? Do you know what I mean? He's like the model son now, And my wife was like, wow, this is fantastic, this, the change was just like phenomenal, man. It was just, so he used to come to me and he would go to the local masjid and, anyway, I loved what Islam had done for him, right? But I remember this Egyptian friend of his, Badra, a real nice lad, and he said, he was doing dawah with us, one day when we'd gone down for a few days, spent with him, and he was, we haven't got to try, and like, there's no compulsion in religion and all that, right? But he was like trying to go as far as he could because his friend loved us, right? He looked upon us, he says, you're like a second mum and dad to me, I love you, And he used to call me dad, and he would say, Dad, like in Islam, you would love this and you would love that, and he was trying his best, man, And I remember I thought, I'm going to have to, like, be brutal, and I love this kid, and I turned around to him and I said, look, if it was for the culture in Islam, I could become a Muslim tomorrow. If it was for the people, I could become a Muslim tomorrow. If it was for the food, I could become a Muslim tomorrow. But I can't. I said, the only reason I can ever become a Muslim is if I can look you in the eye and say there's no God but God and Muhammad is his prophet, and I can't say that to you because it is not true, right? And when I said those words, I saw like the look on his face, and he went so sad. And I says, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to be a hypocrite and join a religion for the wrong reason? And he went, no, I don't want that. And he went quiet, and I felt sad, and I thought, what can I do? Well, the reason was, obviously, it wasn't the right time for us. Came back home, and, I didn't fall out with the lad. I mean, he loved us, we loved him. He was just he was sad for it, you know. And we didn't know that my son used to go to his landlord's family's house for meals and things, you know. And they like took him under the wing. He used to cry a lot, and when they used to say, "Why are you crying?" He used to say, "I'm crying for my mum and dad because they're good people and I love them, but if they don't accept Islam, you know, what's going to happen? Where they're going to go, you know." I worry for them. And we didn't know this, you know, he was that upset. And never mind, he was very patient with us. And then what really, you know, the finale, the thing that brought us into Islam was that during my career, I'm an author, I'm a journalist, freelance broadcaster, you know, and I've written over a dozen books, all on the same subject. I write about the paranormal, you know. I used to write books about ghosts, poltergeists, mystery animals, UFOs, anything, you know. And it was, why? Because in journalism there's an old maxim, write about what you know, stick with what you know. But when you're writing about the paranormal, you're writing about what you don't know, right? And that was a bigger challenge to me, right? I wanted to find out what was behind all this stuff. All these people who claimed they'd seen ghosts, they weren't telling lies. All these people who claimed they'd seen flying saucers, they weren't all crazy, right? So these things were real in some sense. But the skeptics were all saying, "Oh, they're all imagining, they're all lunatics," right? Or they're trying to make money out of it, tell some crazy story. And I knew that wasn't true, right? There was something going on out there, and it was weird, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So I really got into the research side, you know. And, I wrote a book with a colleague called The Socialist Poltergeist, Darren W. Ritson and I, and it was Colin Wilson, who's a country's leading authors and criminologist. He read it and he said it was one of the greatest books about the poltergeist phenomenon he'd ever read, you know, which coming from him was a real compliment, you know, because he's recognised as like one of the top experts, if not the top expert in that sort of field. So I was really getting into this, you know, for like 30 odd years. This was my life, trying to get to the bottom of these strange mysteries. And then I got a text message, an email from a police officer in Essex. And it was, I think it was 3,000, what was it? I can't remember now. It was about 15,000 words long or something like that, right? This email, massive email, describing all this weird stuff that was going on in her house. Knives flying around, stones just getting pelted at people when they were coming up the path, disembodied voices, fires breaking out spontaneously. I mean, every weird phenomenon you could possibly think of, they were experiencing. But when you get into this game, right, you very quickly can suss out when somebody's telling you lies or when they're telling you the truth. Because these phenomena, right, have certain characteristics. And there are things that they don't do and there's things that they do. And so you can very quickly, it doesn't take much for an experienced investigator to know whether somebody's lying or not. So I rang the number, and I ended up speaking to this police officer's husband, okay, she was a detective in CID. And, I spoke to the husband, and it was obvious to me he was telling the truth. No doubt about it. I mean, when I read the email, I thought this family are either clinically insane or they're telling the truth. There's no middle ground here, you know what I mean? And so I went down with a colleague, and we investigated this case, and we saw the most weirdest stuff happen in this house. I mean, really scary stuff, you know, very, very scary stuff. Voices, you know, I had threatening messages from this thing left on my mobile phone, you know, along with other people. I mean, police officers were getting threatening messages left on their phones by this weird mechanical sort of voice, right? And it would know things that only you could know, you know what I mean? And it was like I would be in the house with this family and the phone would ring and it would be me, right? Except it isn't, because I'm a warrior. And there was one occasion I remember when there was a few of us in the house, there was some police officers, me and this colleague of mine. And we saw this guy who was one of the friends of the family, who was one of the principal witnesses, he'd seen a lot of stuff happening in the house. We saw him come around the corner because his house was on the gateway, okay, okay. So we all went to the door to meet him, And instead of like coming down the garden gate, he just walked past. And there's no doubt it was him, because he had a very distinctive style of dressing. He was a bit of a flashy dresser. And we were all going like, Chris, what's the matter with you? Chris, where are you going? And he just carried on walking down the street. And then I turned and looked, and here he is coming around the corner again. And I went, look, right? So there's he is coming around the corner, and we can see his back at that side of the street, walking away from us. And here he is coming around the corner again, right? And this was like one of the craziest moments I was, And then it started like the fires. I mean, there was one night, there was about 5 or 6 police officers in the house, right? There was about 4 of them refused to enter the premises, said they would never go by, right? And I've got statements, right? I mean, I've got recordings of this thing, and I was beating this guy up, right? Seriously, badly beating him up. And in over 30 odd years of research, I've never heard anything as pitiful or as stomach turning in my life as to hear this guy. And he was really, he's no shrinking violet. I mean, he's done like close protection work, security work. To hear this guy getting beaten up inside a motor car by this thing, and hear him begging and pleading for it to stop. And there's I'm on the other end of the phone, right? And there's nothing I can do. And then it starts, in the same instant, starts in my house. And I remember shouting down the phone, anything to try and stop this thing attacking him, because his brother was in the car and there was 2 people in the back. The guy in the back shouted something, and it turned on him, and he had a hoodie on, and he just wrapped his hood around his neck and started strangling with his hood, right? And so I shouted, why don't you leave them alone, you expletives deleted, and why don't you come up here and do something over here for a change and leave this family alone, whatever they've ever done to you, right? So he did, right, within a split second, because these things can travel like speed of light, And it's banging on the wall of my house, the last house, with it, boom, 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 right? And the researcher was with us, my wife, his wife, and we were banging through a rock out in the garden, right? It wasn't. So it was like, you think I can't do this? Watch me. We got the arson investigators in, because it was like fires all over the place, and scary stuff. And for the first time in professional career, I couldn't help this family. I'd always said to them, look, these things have a short shelf life. They normally only last for 6 to 8 weeks, which is statistically true. And then, they go away, right? Just grin and bear it. This thing didn't go away. It was awful. And I just couldn't, no matter what we tried, it was like one step ahead of us, and this thing was really intelligent, and evil. So I didn't want to do. So I was telling my son, my youngest son, who of course by this time was Muslim, and I said, he said, what's wrong? You sound fed up. And I said, it's just a case, I said, it's the first case, I can't get the body off. Somebody really not be happy about it. And he says, why don't you talk to someone from the mosque up there? One of your friends, my Muslim friends. And I said, no, I'm not being funny, but, like, I'm one of the top 6 people in the country who understands this sort of thing. So, not being arrogant, but what could they tell me? Do you know what I mean? That I wouldn't already know. And he says, well, Dad, the thing is, he says, Muslims, right? We do know a bit about this sort of stuff, I says, really? I never discussed this with him, you see. He said, yeah. He said, look, he said, why don't you give Ricky a ring? Okay, it was this brother, this Bangladeshi brother. So I said, okay, I will. So I rang him up, and I said, look, my son's, and you don't know me, but I'm Aaron's father. Will you come round and see me? I need to have a chat with you or something. He went, yeah, okay. So I started telling him what was going on in this house. I thought, this guy's going to think I'm mad, right? And he didn't, right? He just sat there, and he went, okay. He says, there's a dog in the house. Yeah. Black. Yeah. He said, does it light fires? Yes. In the house? Outside as well? Yeah. Then he started asking other questions again. I said, well, hang on, stop. I said, I'll be researching this for like 18 months now, or it was, right? And we're still like, don't know this thing. You ring me out in 5 minutes. And it's like, you know this thing better than I do, right? How does that work? You know, and he went, well, it's not me. He says, no, I'm psychic or nothing like that. He says, just, it's all in the Quran, you know. I went, Quran? He went, have you got a copy? I said, yeah, I've got a copy upstairs. Right? Come get it. And you owned it, the Surah al-Jinn. He says, yeah, that's all it is. Right? So I looked at it, and I started reading it, and after about 2 verses, I remember just the hairs on my body just like stood up on end, right? And it was like electricity running through it, you know what I mean? And I said, what is this? Right? And he went, it's a Quran, bro. Yeah, it's got you, right? And I'm not could hardly breathe, you know? And he says, you read through that, man. Give me a ring tomorrow. I said, I will. Right? So we went. So I'm reading, right? 1:30 in the morning, I rang this other investigator, okay, John. And he woke up and he went, oh, what's the matter, mate? And I went, listen, I found a book with the answer in. And he says, what, the answers to the Essex case? And I said, no, it's better than that. It's the answers to like life, the universe, and everything. And he said, that sounds like a really good book. And he says, but Waterstone's closed, I can't get one of this thing. And I says, you can download off the internet, there's got to be one on the internet you've done, right? I said, just type in Quran, right? You know. So he did. He read 3 surahs, right, before he went to bed. And anyway, that was it for me. I did it. Okay. That Sunday, Ricky rang me up, said, you want to come down to my house for Sunday lunch? It was Father's Day, right? And I said, yeah, okay. My wife and I went down for Sunday lunch. Bangladeshi food is, it's like, if it's wrong, right? It's just, well, I just love food anyway. Bangladeshi food is like really nice curries and like, it's rice and this biryani stuff. And I'm like, you know, salivating at this spread, right? And we had this fantastic lunch. Went in the living room, had coffee, and Ricky's brother, right, who lived next door, Abdul had, Ricky had rang him, right? Yeah, he must have sneaked out when we were diving into this biryani or something, right? And he was this thing, can you come round, you know what I mean? And he said, no, I said, I'm in Arabic class. He says, brother, listen, you have to come, right? So I think he actually left an Arabic class, right? And he came round, so we sat talking, and he says, this is how quick it happened, man, right? He said, do you believe in God? I said, yes. He says, do you believe God is one? I went, yeah. He says, we Muslims believe that. He said, we don't believe in the Trinity. And I said, no, there are. That's why I can't be a Christian. And he said, do you believe in Jesus? I said, yeah. He said, do you believe he was God? I said, no. Do you believe he was a prophet? I said, yeah, definitely. He says, and this, all this is in my head, right? Because intellectually I had a conviction about all of these things, you know what I mean? But I didn't know much about the Prophet Muhammad. The only thing I knew about him was that he lived a long time ago in Arabia, right? And he started a religion called Islam. That's, you know what I'm thinking. So he said to me, you've heard of Muhammad, the Prophet? And I went, yeah. He said, do you believe he was a prophet? And this is where something really weird happened, okay? Because for the first time in a long time, this, right, the cerebral bit stopped talking. And this bit started talking, right, the heart. And something was telling me, even though I didn't know anything about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, I knew nothing about him, something was saying to me, he is a prophet. And it wasn't that long ago I told my son's friend, he ain't no prophet, you know what I mean? That's why I can't become Muslim. You know, something saying, yeah, well, he is. And I said, yeah, I think he is. I believe he is. I don't know why I said, there was no rationale. It was just something inside was like telling me, right, he's a prophet. And he said, so you believe in one God, and you believe that God is one, you don't believe in Trinity? I said, no. come on, God, you believe in Jesus, and you could actually believe Muhammad is a prophet. He says, so could you actually say those words? Could you say there is no God but God and Muhammad is his prophet? You could say that. And I went, yeah, I could. Right? And he said, what about your wife? So I remember saying, well, you know, we've been married like 35 years or whatever, right? And I've never done anything without consulting her first. So, you know, I like to talk about it with her, you know, discuss this with her. And he says, do you want us to leave the room and leave you when you talk? I said, no. And I just had this feeling. I said, I don't think it's going to take that long. And I said, what do you think? And she says, yeah, we should do it. And she says, you as well, definitely. So that was it, right? Within about 2 minutes, we both taken Shahada, right? And I can just remember the door opening, like all these people coming in, because like Bangladeshis are amazing, right? You know, they talk about having an extended family, right? In Bangladesh, there really is only one family, and it's everybody who's Bangladeshi, right? They're all like, if you're Bangladeshi, your family, do you know what I mean? It's amazing. I wish we were like that here. We used to be one thing. So, all these cousins and, you know, second cousins once removed and whatever, and uncles and aunties, they all come piling in because they all live in, you know, on the low tire area. And man, the salams I was getting, and you'd see tears, you know, flowing. And it was the most emotional experience of my life, right? And somebody brought a hijab in for my wife, right? And she put it on there and then bang, right? Then I took it off, right? That was it, you know. And I remember just, it was like in an instant. It was like everything, the previous 55 years or whatever had just gone to like a memory, as if it was somewhere else, do you know what I mean? And it was like being, you know, the Christians talk of being born again. With respect to them, I don't think they really understand the concept, you know what I mean, really, right? Muslims understand the concept. Because when you take Shahada, you really are, it's not literally born again, but in every respect, it's like a new birth to you, you know. And I was just like, it was surreal, you know what I mean? At some point, well, I came back down to earth, right? And more food came out and everything, and we just, you know, everybody, the room was just filled with these Muslims. I didn't do loads of stuff as I used to. I found a lot of my friends weren't really friends, right? They were only friends with me because of me business connections or whatever, and, you know, media connections. And I found that I very quickly found a lot of my friends when I got ill weren't really friends at all, right? And I could count me like real friends on about one hand. And then all of a sudden, right, I got these people around me and I'm looking at them, you know, I'm thinking, you know, I don't know you, but why is I just feel I could trust you with my life, right? You know, it was weird, you know. But then, of course, my son knew none of this. So I came back down to earth, and my like rather vindictive, malicious sense of humour came back into play. You've got to have one of them if you're a journalist, right? You've got to have a really bad sense. You've got to have a wicked sense of humour, you know. So I said to Ricky, he said, you're going to have to tell your Aaron. And I said, tell you what, right? Let's do it this way. He said, okay. So he rang my son up. And he went, Aaron, it's Ricky. Hello. He said, listen, he said, I've got a couple of reverts in the living room here, right? He said, they're just taking Shahada. He says, you're a revert. He says, would you have a word with them and give them like the benefit of your experience? Tell them what it's like, you know, being Muslim. He went, yeah. He put them on. He said, I'll put you on to the bloke first. He's a nice guy. Okay. So I took the phone and I went, Assalamu alaikum. And there was a silence. He went, wa alaikum salam. To whom am I speaking? So I just waited, alright, and I just said, it's your dad. Right? Whoa, right, the balloon went up, right, he was crying on the phone. What about my mother, you know? And I said, just a minute, I put the phone in, it's okay, I took Charlotte too, it's alright, you know. And that was amazing, man, it was, you know, and, you know, then, what had to tell me dad. So the next day, we went over, and my wife walked in with a hijab, okay? Because she has never had it, right? She wears Islam she's not, she's not like all of the radar type Muslim woman, she's like, And my dad never said nothing. No, sorry, he did. He looked at it, he said, oh, that's nice, okay. And anyway, we started talking, I said, look, I've got something to tell you. Yesterday something happened, It caused a bit of a shock. And he went, what was that then? I said, we'll become Muslims. He went, oh yeah, that's great, good, please for you. Happy? Yeah, chum. And that's it, So anyway, as we walked out the door, he said, oh, by the way, he said, have you told Aaron? He'd be happy. And I went, yeah, I told Aaron, I told him. He said, your friend, the one who took you through this thing, the shadow thing? I went, yeah. He said, can you ask him if he couldn't see me? I went, yeah, sure, why? He said, because I want to become Muslim too. And I went, of course, yeah. And we walked out the door, as we got out the door of his flat, because he lived in the same building as we are in now, okay? So, like this, we got out to the door of the corridor, right? And my wife said, did you notice something weird about your dad? I went, yeah, but I'm not sure what it was. She went, that bit when he said, I want to become Muslim too, and you thought he was joking? I said, yeah. She said, he wasn't laughing, he wasn't smiling, his face was like serious. And I thought, yeah, it was actually. So I says, hang on a minute, right? So I went back and I says, Dad, that thing, he went, yeah. I says, you were joking? I went, yeah. He went, no, serious. I become Muslim. So, he said, something I've never told you. 5 years ago, he said, I lost my faith in Christianity. And he said, it's gone. He says, but I've been thinking about Islam and that recently. I think I've got it back. Right? And he's 79 years old, okay? So he took Shahada. And then my best friend, the researcher I was telling you about, one of the one with me and have been struggling with this horrible thing in Essex, he came down to my house on the Wednesday, and he took Shahada. Okay? So he became Muslim too. And then Billy, another friend of mine, rang me up out the blue, and he was like, I know I've seen you for about 20 years, mate, and it's a bit of a time passed since we last kind of been up with you, I feel a bit down, and I just thought I'd give you a ring. I went, wow, Billy, it was like ages since I've seen you, so I went for a cup of coffee, and he just says, what's this world all about now? He says, like, what's the point of everything? It's just like there's no point in it, we're all just marching on, doing stuff, and, and he said, actually, I said, there is a point of it, you know what I mean? And this was like Groundhog Day, because I'm here, and like, this is when my son's experience, like, being revisited, And I said, there is a point of it. I had a chat about Islam, went up to Abdullah's house, there and then, took Shahada.
Allahu, 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 Allah, Allahu, 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 Allah.